welcome back to Season 2 of From the Stands, the college football game day show. We're doing it real special today. You've got the weird camera angle from me. I'm both producer and host today, so you're getting the live view of the production studio on the show. It's great, it's fantastic, and everything is going according to plan. Everything. Welcome to the show, Mikey, back from Season 1, my fellow Sooner fan. Luckily, actually in Norman, while the rest of us have to be out here in Louisiana dealing with hurricanes and massive eruptions of insects following one of the wettest winters on history. It sucks down here. I'm telling you, you cannot walk outside without just being... you just walk out into a swarm of insects, like love bugs. You guys... Do you even have love bugs, Cameron, where you're at?
I don't even know what that...
No, but we have something called midges.
So, like, love bugs...
I don't know if we're referring to the same thing.
Well, okay, so love bugs, because this is totally college football related, they're like... They don't really come out, and you don't really see them until they're mating, alright? And they fly around in large groups connected to each other. So they look like if you hit them with your car, and you have to wash them off immediately, because if you don't, their insides are acidic and they eat your paint. Swear to God, true story. That's what happens. Like down here, you have to wash your car after you get home, because if you don't, you'll wake up with no paint on the hood of your car.
Oh my God! Well, yeah. We don't have them that big. Which is probably why we call them midges. But they don't necessarily do as much damage to your car as they do to every bit of exposed skin that you have.
Mm.
They will bite you anywhere that you allow them to.
That sounds like fleas.
Yeah. Fleas, but they fly and they do the whole hurricane mating thing.
So flying flea, yeah, no, I'm good on that. No thanks. For those that didn't watch us during our very brief stint in the XFL, during the XFL's very brief stint of existence, Cameron has joined us from the XFL side of From the Stands. We were all sitting down. We were having meetings. We're like, what are we gonna do for Season 2? It's gonna be different. We're sitting around. We're just like, you know what? No other football show has a British guy talking about American football. So we decided to bring Cam on to be the like. That's the only reason. You know, it's just our angle, our hook. It's like, hey, we have a Brit talking about football. No, not that football. Real football.
That is the only purpose I serve here. I know nothing.
It is. He doesn't even know what a Detroit Lion is, so we just sent him a jersey and was like, here, wear it. It'll make sense.
It'll make sense to whoever's watching.
I do want to point out, I pointed this out during pre-production, we do have a college football shirt, an NFL shirt, and OG Dallas Renegades XFL shirt, all on the same show. We're doing it right here on From the Stands, but this is a football show, so let's talk about football, guys. Let's talk about the offseason, and we've already had week 1 of college football, although we didn't start that week because there were really only a couple of games, and none of the major players were really playing this week. So, Mikey, give me a rundown, a little bit about the offseason, and then Cam, tell us about week 1 of the college football multiverse.
Oh, the off-season, I mean, off-season of all off-seasons, really. We've got a lovely global pandemic that has all but canceled most sports, but football remains for some of the country, at least. Some of the lucky ones. Other than that, I mean, LSU has had a huge exodus from their program. We've seen Joe Burrow go first overall in the NFL draft. We've seen a lot of interesting things happen this off-season. The predominant theme right now is coronavirus, so I'm sure we'll be talking
COVID
to endless.
Yeah, a lot of we have different segments and stuff, but almost all of them you can tie back in one way, shape, or form to COVID, so it's gonna be great. It has definitely been an interesting off season. Very chaotic off season, honestly. Especially with COVID, everyone wondering, are we even going to have a season? Some of us are, some of us aren't. Like if you're a Pac-12 fan, all 3 of you are going to have a bad summer and fall. Big Ten, couple more fans than the Pac-12. We get it. You guys had, I was honestly shocked, and you guys let me know if you feel the same way. I was so assured that the Pac-12 was going to be the first P5 conference to cancel, right? I just knew. I was like, Pac-12. And then Big Ten, out of nowhere, boom, no, Pac-12, you can't have it. You can't even be number one at quitting. We're quitting first. So, I don't know if that surprised you guys or not, but it really did surprise me, all jokes aside, that the Big Ten was actually out. But the Pac-12 was ready for it, because literally, like, the Big Ten tweet came out, we're like, hey, we're canceling football. Pac-12 was like, us too, we're done. Hey, us too, we don't want to do football either. Like, they were ready for it. They were just waiting for someone else to do it. What do you guys think?
Mexican standoff of who is going to cancel football first, because the one thing that they didn't want to do was that they really wanted to cancel football. They wanted to be like they wanted to cancel football, but they didn't want it to like quickly cancel football. We wanted to do it. They was like, oh well, we want to play, but there's health concerns and logistical concerns. No, they really just wanted to cancel football and put themselves on the safe side. But they were all waiting for each other to cancel first.
Yeah. I think the Big Ten was a little bit more, which is even more surprising that they canceled first. It seems to be a little bit more divided on whether or not to cancel it or have a season this year, especially with Nebraska, Ohio State, and I think it was Iowa was the third one, if I recall correctly.
I think so.
That were like avidly against canceling. They don't like. Just now we were talking in the discussion before the show about Ohio State's coach coming out and saying we really would like to play football in October so that we can have a chance at the national championship. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. And we'll get into more of this COVID stuff and more of this off-season stuff as we get along here. But Cam, tell us, you have decided to be a fan of UAB somehow.
Decided.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we decided for you, but you know.
No. The numbers decided in the sort
It's
of
true.
the from the stands digital office that we have.
Yes.
We decided that I needed a football team to support this season. So we put all the FBS teams into. We gave them all numbers alphabetically. I on a random number generator, it pulled up something in the hundreds. Which is why I am now, for this season, supporting the University of Alabama at Birmingham.
Yes.
Go Blazers.
It's so fitting too. Like, right? Weren't you? Wait, no, you were with me, weren't you? Were you a Dallas fan in XFL?
No, I was firmly in the Battlehawks.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the Battlehawks. Woo, woo. It's caca, lame ass birds. Yeah, the first one we picked, it wasn't UAB. It was I think it was like Troy or something like that, but it was a team that wasn't playing. We ended up because we did it, and it was a team that canceled their season. And then the second one, it was so perfect that you got Alabama Birmingham because there's a town in England called Birmingham, so it's fitting. It works.
It's more of a massive city, but hey,
what a village town. It was
Hamlet.
A hamlet. That's such a British word. A hamlet. It's a hamlet.
Yeah, it's a civilization that is literally not big enough to register as a village. It's like 3 houses and a corner shop, and that is it. And that is what is a hamlet.
Very nice.
Not the play.
Well, I bring that up because UAB, unlike the Oklahoma Sooners that me and Mikey are fans of, have actually played a game already this year. So tell us about what you happened to find out and enjoyed about week 1 of college football.
First thing, college football back on screen. Actually, it wasn't the television screen, it was on the iPad screen because I had to find somewhere on the internet to watch the game.
Perfectly and totally legally, of course.
Oh, yes, of course. ESPN has many streams available internationally. It's all fine. But, so week 0, which is slightly depressing, never happened because Hawaii isn't playing. And also meant that I didn't get this side of the pond the Aer Lingus All-Island game. I didn't get that, which is normally played week 0. That was the only loss that I actually felt anywhere near close to home. But when we get week 1, we get on the field. UAB, we get a win. We get a high-scoring win, 80 points in total against Central Arkansas, who in week 0 were one of the first teams to play. They beat Austin P-E-A-Y. I will never understand why it is spelt and pronounced as such.
We don't get it either. We don't get it either. Normally it's you guys adding extra letters to things like color and honor, right? But now it's us with Austin P. Like, literally, we somehow turned one letter into 4. Austin P-E-A-Y-P.
Yeah, that's the biggest challenge. The sport's fine. Understanding why you have so many different universities name so many different things. That's the difficult part. But yeah, probably the interesting thing to see was that 2 military sides were in action week 1. We had Army facing Middle Tennessee. They blew out Middle Tennessee 42-0. And then on Tuesday, well, for me it was Tuesday. I'm pretty sure it was Monday night in the States. It was BYU versus Navy. And now this became the big talking point of week 1 because Navy did not have a contact practice session all off-season. BYU did, and BYU beat Navy 55 points to 3 on Navy's home soil.
They didn't just beat Navy. They obliterated Navy, all right?
They humiliated them.
They Hiroshima'd Navy, all right? It was the Japanese have had their vengeance, and that vengeance came at the hand of Brigham Young University, all right? Because Navy was obliterated by those Mormons up there in Utah. Or Idaho.
Yeah,
I think Navy was still doing no contact during the game.
Some of the tackling attempts, I can definitely confirm to you, there was at least 6 feet between them.
Oh, they get an A+ in social distancing, guys. An A+ indeed. All right. Anything else spectacular or anything you want to talk about with week 1 other than the play that we're going to talk about later?
Oof.
I know you're itching to talk about the play. We all are. We're going to get there.
Yeah, it's itching to talk about it. Well, the one thing overarching that I want to say is that there was some serious blowouts week 1, which I think probably is not entirely unexpected given the nature of the offseason for a lot of teams. Eastern Kentucky got nilled by Marshall. Marshall put up 59 points. Yep. North Texas beating Houston Baptist 57-31. Just big one-sided victories in week 1.
That's true. One of and a big one was that probably what should have been unexpected was that Navy BYU game where the coach of Navy had a quote. Mikey, do you have that quote for us? Because we're going to jump into On the Podium, where we're going to talk about some of our favorite off-season quotes. Now, obviously, this one happened in week 1, so we can't consider it an off-season quote, but I think it's worth an honorable mention that we give our friend Ken here the ability to explain what happened with his team. Mikey, do you have that quote up?
I do have it up right now, and it's courage. It's so Ken Niumatalolo said, "We're probably the cleanest team in the country, but unfortunately, we suck at football right now."
And it's true.
He's not wrong.
It's true. I think COVID cases, they have like none, but they also have no first downs, touchdowns, fumble recoveries, or really anything. So, it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off.
They have 3 points.
3 points. 3 points. They get. That's what we'll do. We'll just, when we predict Navy games, we'll just, how many COVID cases does Navy have? All right, that's how many points they're going to score. All right, it works out perfectly. Now, we are talking about On the Podium, some quotes and things like that from the offseason, because we do want to try and get a little bit of this offseason in before we get into the meat of this season. I don't really have a quote in particular, but I did want to bring up the situation at Oklahoma State, because for whatever reason, when you wear orange, you just make mistakes, I guess. I don't know. You just make terrible choices and piss everybody off. It's something about the color orange, I guess. I don't know. Texas, Oklahoma State, Oregon State. You're guilty by association. Sorry. So we've got Oklahoma State. We've got a very, very charged political climate. We're not going to get into politics here on this show. It's a football show. It's not a politics show. But we do have a particularly charged political environment right now. Kind of a divided country. And our good friend Mike Gundy over there at Oklahoma State discovered, much to his chagrin, that the news station that he happens to particular from time to time has his players think it's a racist situation there at the OAN. Isn't that what it is? OAN? I don't watch it. I mean, I don't. My internet comes from Reddit, or my news comes from Reddit. So it's as much as I know. And it's not so much. Again, it is a quote. His quote was, I just thought it was a news show. I didn't think it would be that big of a deal to wear a t-shirt. And I think that kind of gives us an insight sometimes as to how disconnected I think some coaches can be to what's going on outside of the world of football, because you have to be so hyper-focused on football, recruiting, right? Getting your players into position, going back and looking at tape from the previous year based on your schedule. You've got 3 teams, generally speaking, that you didn't face last year. So you've got to, do your research on all of them, and you're doing all of this stuff during the offseason to prepare for this season that, this kind of political landscape we're in. I thought it was interesting how just sort of disconnected he seemed to be from the world around him outside of football. Now you're watching, there's a program on ESPN Plus, of course, that is following Oklahoma State this year, and they briefly mentioned it on there. It was a small segment. They definitely underplayed the seriousness of the situation, I think, from Chuba Hubbard and Coach Gundy and the whole school itself. But you can tell, even when just watching that show, just kind of how hyper-focused he is on that coaching. I mean, they're starting their meetings at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then practices at 7 o'clock. It's crazy how much of their day is spent on football. And so I think that I think it's just very interesting to see sort of how even leading into this offseason, or being in the offseason, that these coaches aren't really off ever, right? Like, one season may come to an end, but now you're on the recruiting trail again, and the season's just started again. But I know Mikey's gonna bring us into a little bit of a happier place. Not such a serious quote, but Mikey, what was your favorite off-season quote this off-season from a coach or player?
Well, in the wake of the news that oatmeal cream pies are going to be making a cereal, of course, Nick Saban, huge fan of oatmeal cream pie, so they directed it to his daughter, and his daughter told him. And they asked him, well, what do you think? And he said, amazingly enough, my daughter, Kristen, who really keeps up on all that type of stuff, sent me a text last night with a picture of this, and I think I'll be one of the first guinea pigs that'll be out there trying to test it out. I'll be an expert in at least in that, if not anything else. The low-fat milk, because there's so much bad in the Debbie cookies that you got to balance it out in some kind of way. So that tells me 2 things. 1, not quite sure if he's an expert in football. 2, he really does have planning. He does plan everything out, because even when it comes to something like cereal, he's got, okay, the fat content is high, so I got to balance it out with low fat content. That just shows the kind of football mentality he has, and that they never turn that mentality off. I think that's what makes Nick Saban one of the greatest coaches of all time.
There you have it. The secret to being the greatest coach of all time is oatmeal cream pies.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Cam.
Effective milk choice.
Indeed. Effective milk choice.
Indeed.
Although the correct choice is always whole milk. Let's be honest. 2% low fat. It's not the same. If I wanted to drink water, I'd get water. If I want milk, it's got to be whole. Cam, what do you got for us for the quote?
Well, I went digging today. And believe it or not, unless you catch a quote right in the moment, assuming it's bizarre enough, they're hard to dig up afterwards. But I did manage to find one which, in relation to the lack of contact training in off-season, other teams have faced a similar issue. And Florida Gators head coach Dan Mullens compared the situation by saying you probably wouldn't want to go rush into the hospital and have surgery with somebody who has a surgery twice in 10 months. Which I think is funny considering that the state that hospitals are in currently, you'd be lucky to go into a surgery full stop.
Oh, it depends on what part of the country you're in. Around here, you can get into it. It's not too bad up here, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, Oklahoma's got more hospitals than they do people, so I mean...
Yeah, it's pretty low population density. I think I saw a person today and I was creeped out.
Yeah, it's crazy when that happens. Like, you'll jump on I-49 or something, and all of a sudden there's another car and you don't know what to do. Am I in the right lane? I don't even know.
I feel like I should call the police and be like, "There's a stranger here. I've never seen him before."
Yeah. It makes you want to kind of, opt out of going outside. Speaking of opting out, let's talk about players that have opted out of the college football season and how they've impacted their teams. That was such a brilliant, that was amazing. That was amazing.
That was smooth. That was silky smooth.
Good job. Opted out, guys. We're going to talk a little bit about players who have decided to opt out. I want to bring up a little bit here. We're going to talk more about this later, but we've got, every year we have teams shed, right? We'll call it like a shed, all right? So the seniors leave, some of the juniors leave, but mostly the seniors leave to go play in the NFL or go do their careers. They're out of eligibility. Coaches get picked up for other teams and promotions and things like that. The transfer portal has added to this even more, right? These 2 years we've had with this transfer portal, the ability for kids to be able to choose a different school. Graduate transferring has become more commonplace now as well, I feel. So every year you're still the same team to a degree, but you're losing a lot of time very key elements to who you are and your identity as that team, especially from the previous year. So already every single year, you're kind of having to replace key aspects of your offenses and your defenses and things like that. Your playbook even might change based on the personnel that you have. So it's already a difficult enough situation, but now we have COVID coming out. We have COVID-19 to deal with, and we have players opting out. And, of course, there have been quite a few players to opt out, but some of the bigger names that have opted out have potentially done a whole lot of harm by doing so to the team that they come from. For example, Ja'Marr Chase is going to be out, and you take a team like LSU who literally was obliterated during the offseason. They lost their quarterback. They lost probably 9 of their on-field coaches, I think. Like a ridiculous number of on-field coaches left, plus all of your normal transfers and seniors and juniors going to the NFL, going to the draft, going to start their careers in various fields and things like that. I think Chase was like a big nail to LSU not being the team of last year, right? I think that they were already in a very spectacularly different situation with their lineup. They're probably in like the top 20 of schools that lost talent on the offseason, and that's not even including their coaches. I mean, Mikey might correct me. He's like looking up in the air like, yeah, I think that's right. I'm not sure. I need to run that through my computer brain hooked up to the thing here. So, I mean, I think someone like Ja'Marr Chase hurts LSU significantly because that's a key piece that they were counting on having back that they don't have anymore. And they have really, really big shoes to fill coming into this 2020 season after the season they had last year, winning the national championship, going completely undefeated, and more or less obliterating every single one of their opponents. Sounds like a good time to point out though that Oklahoma scored more points against them than Clemson did. So just want to put that out there.
You'll get the Texas fans in here.
So we're only counting teams that played a playoff game. So
yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I mean, it comes down to LSU's in kind of a pickle, And again, we're going to talk a little bit about that more in our buy-sell segment later on. But Jamar Chase, I think, is my biggest impact on the college scene. I think that him leaving LSU is going to cause serious harm to that team coming up this year. Who else do we have that you guys feel impacted us, Cam? Where are you at on this one?
Well, I tell you what, I do agree that Jamar Chase will be a hell of a loss for LSU, but he's one of a number. So I think him leaving isn't the only factor that's going to hurt LSU. But again, we're touching on that later in the show. I want to take us over to Virginia Tech because Caleb Farley declared, I think just this month, if I correctly, that he will be opting out of this season. He is a elite athlete, proven. 6'2", fast as hell, and he's a skilled defender. Especially man coverage, right? He is a very, very big part of that Virginia Tech secondary. For him, personally, opting out of this season to get his body and his mind right for the NFL, I don't think is too much of a loss for this season. But for Virginia Tech, he is the big playmaker on defense. He had 4 interceptions last year. That's the most on the team. However, there is Jermaine Waller and Dax Hollifield, right? Each had 3 interceptions. So, the turnovers, you're maybe not going to miss if Waller can step in and maybe fill a bit of the gap that Farley left. He has the ability to do so. He's proven it. On the one hand is, then who comes in alongside Waller? And that's where you see the sort of overall quality of the secondary decrease, because now you don't have a 4-pick and a 3-pick secondary. You've got a 3-pick and an unproven part of the secondary. So I think that will be a very interesting aspect to watch for Virginia Tech.
I agree. You know, especially when it comes to, like, Virginia Tech plays in a, you know, we talk about LSU plays in the SEC. Virginia Tech, I think, plays in a conference with a little bit more parity, perhaps, across the board, maybe. I think the SEC has some bottom feeders that you just know aren't really ever going to do anything. So I think Tech being in the ACC, I mean, if you're outside of Clemson, you probably have a 50-50 shot at winning a game, right? Clemson, you're probably going to lose to, but everybody else, you know, you're pretty much, you have a lot more parity, I think, on the bottom end there than you do in the SEC. So I think in that conference, for some of those middle tier teams, such as I suspect Virginia Tech will be this year, that, you know, every little bit counts. So you could be absolutely right that it could have a huge impact that he's out, that Caleb goes out this season, because again, those middle tier guys, they need every piece they can to get up to that top to make it to that championship game there in the ACC. Mikey, who do you think had the biggest impact this season on opting out?
Oh, I mean, I'd have to. It's a bit of unconventional, but I'd say Penei Sewell of Oregon, the tackle. Now he's opting out and getting ready for the draft, and he's not going to miss a step. He'll be a top pick in the draft, and he'll do just fine in the NFL, I think. What I really think is the issue is that it sort of sets a precedent that if you're in a conference like the Pac-12 or the Big Ten, where they're not going to play football right now, and you have the opportunity to just up and go pro, I think you're going to see a lot of athletes take that offer, because there's not really a whole lot of incentive for it right now. They're not playing. They're not developing tape. Got access to athletic facilities, sure, but if you're draft eligible, why not just go to the NFL? For Oregon, they're not going to play football this year, but the year after, they must have been hoping to have Sewell around, because he really did make that line what it was last season. It was pretty fantastic what he was doing there. I think without him, Oregon's kind of scrambling together something to work for the upcoming season. And for the greater picture, I think Sewell has made it a bit more tantalizing to just go to the NFL and not bother with all this not playing.
I could see that for sure, especially setting that precedent. When you first brought him up, I was like, but Oregon's not playing anyway, so why does it matter? But you did raise a good point about, setting the precedent and whatnot. For example, if the Pac-12 decides they're not going to play until January, right? You're not that far away from the NFL Combine, right? So what do you do as a player, especially a senior? I know that the NCAA is saying, no matter what, if you play or don't play, you're not losing a year of eligibility this season.
It's nice.
So that is a nice. That's going to be a lot of headaches for the draft class of next year and the year after. But we'll get into that next year on the preseason show. But the idea, I guess, is that if the Pac-12 decides to play, that they are going to play in January, and some of these kids have been kind of on the fence about it, I think it could push them over, and I think you could see a lot of potentially Big Ten and Pac-12 players opting out of the season entirely, and maybe not necessarily going to the NFL draft, but just deciding not to play in the wintertime, going into the spring, because of the fact that they're going to have to come back in the fall, 4 to 5 months after that season and play a whole nother season again. So I think, honestly, for a lot of them, it would probably be smart to opt out if you're going to start that late in the year. To play, January, February, March games, and then come back in a couple of months and play fall ball in 2021. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how all of that plays out for sure. Of course, every time you have someone leave, there's got to be someone to fill their shoes. But what happens when you don't have anyone to fill in those shoes? We are about to find out. Right here, I've got a video for us to take a look at, and this is the answer. We'll drop this down just really quickly. We'll drop this down. This is the answer to that question of what happens when you don't have someone to fill those shoes. Let's take a look real quick at this clip from Austin Peay versus Central Arkansas this week.
Snap over the head. Deej recovers it. And a costly error for the Governor's special team.
There you have it. That is apparently the answer to what happens when you don't have someone to fill those shoes. That's right. Austin Peay's long snapper and backup long snapper were out for this game because of COVID-related issues. So I don't know who they had. Like I said, I just saw the clip. I didn't go that far into it. I don't know who they had being the long snapper, but that wasn't even the only one they messed up. There was another one later on in the first quarter that they also screwed up, and I think this time it was like too low. So that time it was too high and too far. The next time it was too low. Dude couldn't get it. And both times resulted in loss of yards. And I think, I can't remember, but I do think that Central Arkansas scored on both of those possessions. I could be wrong. Cameron, I know you actually watched the game. You might be able to tell me more. I don't remember. I watched the highlights of it. Because I think it was like the first game of the season, wasn't it?
This was week 0.
Yeah.
This was the first. Is 2 FCS teams. So.
Yeah. So I think Central Arkansas was able to pull it off. Who won that game? Was that?
That was it was Central Arkansas.
Central Arkansas won.
Yep. I think by, was it 31-17, but I can check that. 24-17.
24. Yeah, that's probably the closest game of the damn first 2 weeks of football here. From the sounds of it.
Well, you had Texas State UTEP. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Or, no, not Texas State. It was, I guess it was Texas State.
Yeah, because none of the Big 12 teams play until tomorrow. Yeah, or not tomorrow, Saturday.
Yeah.
Which tomorrow for the viewers, Saturday for us because it's Thursday night. But yeah, that I think that was the first game, and so I want to ask you guys a question about what do you think is the most underrated? Obviously, apparently long snapper, but what's the position player that you don't know you've got till it's gone? That's the question I want to raise you to. One each. What do you think is the most underrated position in a college football squad? I should clarify. I mean player position.
I think you have to top the list as definitely the long snapper, because no one ever thinks of the long snapper as something that really needs to be set up and put in the game. Evidently, it does. I think it definitely it's going to be someone on special teams, right? Because your offense and your defense, those are the your most common, where you're putting a lot of your time and effort into making the best, because they're the ones that are going to be on the field most of the time. So every position, regardless of whether that time is distributed equally, it's still going to get more than a lot of special team positions.
Mm-hmm.
I think your punter definitely is one, because being able to punt correctly and tactically is something that is learned and practiced. You can't just say to anyone, hey, just drop kick this ball, put it on the 20, put it in the 5, just on the day. You
on the left hash.
Yeah, I mean, just bounce this right inside the 10. Maybe we want this guy to return it. He's not that good. That's something that has to be learned. It's something that has to be practiced. You can't just put a guy in there, say, drop kick this ball. So I think that's definitely one of the ones that goes a little underrated. I mean, we all know what a good punt looks like, but we never really appreciate all the work that goes into a good punt.
That's true. I definitely think special teams, and I'm actually trying to think in the back of my head, all the times I've played Madden, like franchise mode, and I've done drafting, if I've ever seen, is there even a menu for long snapper? Like when you're going through the positions, is there like LS? Is that... is there? I don't know. We'd have to ask someone that plays Madden more than I do. I'd kind of just get on there and
there's long snapper.
Is there?
Yeah, and if you go in the depth chart, there's long snapper. Usually it's the third string tight end or something.
Well, no. When I say long snap, I mean when you're going onto the draft board, can you draft a long snapper? Is that a thing? Is that a position?
Oh, in the Ultimate Team?
Yeah, like that, or just when you're in franchise mode and you're trying to trade players and things like that. Is long snapper on that list that you pull the triggers for and scroll down to DT, RT, RG, LT, all that stuff? I'm trying to remember if there's an LS and if that stands for long snapper.
It's definitely LS, because they definitely have position marked LS. I don't believe the players themselves are long snappers. They're marked tight ends. But the position's long snapper. The players themselves, their player cards, are a tight end.
Huh.
I mean, kind of.
I suppose. So what about you, Mikey? What do you got for us for underrated position on a football squad?
I completely agree with special teams, and any member of the special teams, really. I mean, if you have a bad punter, you're going to get shanks that go sometimes -2 yards. If you have a bad kicker, you're Alabama, so it could work out, but then you have a game against Auburn where it doinks off the upright. So if I had to pick
Auburn's going to win the Iron Ball.
Auburn's going to win the football game. If I had to pick
That's what it was. That's the quote. Auburn's going to win the football game. Sorry, That's my favorite clip ever. Fuck Alabama. I'm sorry. What are we talking about? Underrated.
I would probably go. Backup quarterback is honestly, a lot of people forget that you have a backup quarterback. And how many times have we seen it where the starting quarterback, gets injured, whether it's a serious injury or something that just takes him out of the game in the next few plays?
True.
Backup goes out there and you're just oh jeez.
Never forget that Tua Tagovailoa's backup quarterback brought us to the playoffs on an off year.
Yeah. And sometimes it works out, but a lot of times, you and it may not be the backup's fault. He doesn't get first team reps or snaps, and he's just thrown out there unexpectedly, and he's expected to keep it. Honestly, the backup quarterback is sometimes the hero of the game, and it should be.
We've definitely heard that story more than once, where the backup quarterback comes in and saves the day. Not being in that position, but we all saw the Jets game with Baker Mayfield's first year in the NFL. It's a college show, but we bring it in from time to time. where, Tyrod goes down and he comes back and wins the game. First year in the NFL, first game in the NFL, and boom, there you go. And we've heard that story. We've heard that story dozens of times in college as well, where a backup quarterback is, forced into the game because of some unfortunate circumstance, and brings the team on a comeback just because and I think even the coaches sometimes forget that there's a backup quarterback, because if they have a different play style, you'll see that from time to time where all of a sudden they didn't prepare for this new kid to show up on the field and start, being a runner, for example, having good feet, having good quickness, right? So they don't account for that from time to time, and I think that's something you should be mindful of. That being said, other things to be mindful of is all of our social media. We want to make sure you guys get out there and follow us on all of that. So follow us on Twitter at From the Stands. Pretty much everything's From the Stands. If you're actually looking on here, directly above my finger, when I get there. Wait.
No.
Yeah, it's all backwards. You know what? We'll do it. Here you go. It's all backwards. There we go. Right there. Above my finger. Like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. It's all there. It's all there. Check it out. Give us a follow. It really helps. Honestly, really appreciate it, guys. Also, we do have a Patreon. If you guys are, really love us for some reason. I don't know why you would. But, I've been surprised before. My wife married me, right? So, if you want to support us financially, you can do so with our Patreon, or on our Patreon. So be sure to check that out as well. And speaking of money, let's move on to our buy-sell section of the show this episode. We are going to be talking about a lot of fun things, but specifically, I want to talk about LSU. There has been a ton of hype for LSU this year, and I want to know, are we buying into it? Are we selling out of it? I am going to go first on LSU, as with all of these, because my name's first, and that's the way the graphics work, from that direction to that direction. But I think I'm going to have to go with a hard sell. LSU, okay? LSU has lost literally every coach they had last year. They've lost a ton of seniors. They lost the star quarterback that, I understand that a team is not one person. I understand that. But an identity can be. And I think LSU's identity last year was very, very much centered around Joe Burrow, right? And his ability to throw and his ability to be in the way his feet worked and all that stuff. And his just had a really good game mind. I don't think that they're going to be able to field a quarterback nearly as good as him. Even if it's 90%, I think if you have a 90% Joe Burrow last year, you don't go 15-0. I really don't. I think you have fits along the way. I don't think you're nearly as dominant as LSU was in the 2019 season. And I think that the LSU we're going to get this year is that sort of high mid-tier SEC team. They've always been towards the top. And then every once in a while, they make that jump to the top. But I think this year, you're going to see them underneath Georgia. You're going to see them underneath Alabama. You're going to see them underneath Florida, especially with this weird schedule that they're playing now, where they're going to be playing a lot more cross-divisional. Teams are not used to playing as often. I think we're going to see LSU my bold prediction, and the reason I'm selling, LSU doesn't make the playoffs, doesn't win the championship, and doesn't even go to the title game for the SEC title. I think we're going to see I think if they're playing 10 games, we're going to see a 6-4 LSU this year. I don't know. What do you think, Cameron? Are you buying or are you selling on LSU?
So this is the thing. I get all the stuff about the overhaul, and I get the stuff. They've lost a lot of players and they've lost a lot of coaches. But the thing is, we talked about identity. They still have Ogeron, right? They still have this overarching guidance of how they want to play. And it's LSU. It's not like they've lost all these players and suddenly they're the worst football team to ever touch a gridiron, right? They still have talent. It's just sort of more raw, unmolded talent. And with that being said, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to buy, right? So you said 6-4. I think there is a potential, right? It's out there. I think they could possibly go 8-2.
8-2?
I think they could get with the whole schedule that the SEC is playing, they could get to the conference championship game on 8-2. That is a very long and possibly weak limb, but it's the hill I'm going to stand and die on.
So you're saying 8-2. I mean, I can see 8-2. I really can. I'm not saying that, I probably should have gone like in the middle and said like 7-3. I feel like is probably more realistic, but I don't know. I feel like LSU's going to drop in early when COVID's been weird. I think teams are going to be kind of in a weird headspace starting out, and I think that LSU has kind of a tougher schedule on the front end of things, and I think that maybe before they can really catch their feet and catch their new identity, if you will, they're going to drop one that they shouldn't, and that's why I think they're going to go 6-4. But I could definitely see it going 8-2 if they, shake that out and get in early and can really find themselves and be a good club, knowing how to play well together. Mikey, are you buying or selling LSU this year?
When I think about LSU, and first of all, when you've introduced the segment, and he said, speaking about money, I could have sworn you're going to say, well, speaking about money, LSU, because... But I think about LSU, and last year, I mean, I thought it was a surprise to most people that just how well that team ran. Mm-hmm. And I think about it as sort of the stars aligning for that one season, because they had all of their seniors in the right spots. They had all the coaches working well, and there's no like infighting or anything like that. They had their athletes. They had Joe Burrow doing lights out, going Super Saiyan. And I look at what they have now, and they've graduated or transferred or opted out. I think they're returning only 6 of their 22 starters or something like that, which is almost unheard of in at least the last 20 years. And when you look at their passing game coordinator is gone, their this and that, all of these coaches have left, and all the strengths that they've had seem to have left. So I really don't see them having the same amount of success. I mean, there'll still be a pretty good SEC team, and the SEC is pretty good, so they're going to be a pretty great team. But I'm definitely going to sell on them. They're not going to recapture that glory.
All right, so you are selling on LSU. I got to agree with you on that. I think that pretty much everyone who had a hand, with the exception of Ed Orgeron, that had a hand in anything Joe Burrow isn't a part of LSU anymore. The Joe Burrow train has left that building. It's now in Cincinnati, right? So that being said, I think we'll see how it shakes out at the end. Maybe Cameron knows something we don't, Mikey. Maybe we're just a bunch of Oklahoma Sooner bumpkins that don't know shit about football. We'll have to wait and see, I suppose. But let's take it a little bit further south. Still staying a little swampy. But let's go over to Tallahassee. How are we feeling about FSU this year? There's a lot of talk about FSU possibly coming out and being really strong. For me, I don't know. Dan Mullens out there at FSU, he's had a lot of time, and he hasn't really done a lot with it. Right? I don't know. I just feel like with the time he's had, we should be seeing more production out of FSU, and I'm not seeing it. So as much as I hate to see it, I'm gonna have to sell on FSU as well. Not a good day for me with these SUs. All right, just gonna send a big SU to all the SU teams out there. What do you think, Cameron? How are you feeling about FSU? Are you buying or are you selling?
I'm in the same boat as you, Caleb. I think Dan Mullens, they've had it's obvious everyone's had a disrupted preseason, but when you're trying to do something new with the team, not having a preseason is really gonna mess with not only just kind of how you implement the plan, but also the headspace of your players and your coaches. So I don't think that they're going to A, improve from last season, B, possibly could get worse given the strength of schedule that they've been given. Obviously, it's not a normal year schedule because of spooky COVID-19. Oh, look, there it is. If you're playing from the stands bingo at home, you have probably put a hole in the square where COVID-19 is. So yeah, I think possibly if with trying to give a team a new identity, if their struggles would be slightly more entertaining and they maybe have a slightly better to watch brand of football, even if it still doesn't do any good in terms of a win-loss ratio. But either way, I'm selling FSU.
Selling FSU. Mikey, where are we at? Where are you at? Where's your headspace when it comes to Dan Mullen and his FSU team?
The logic in me says nothing's really going to change. There's something about what they've done so far, and you watch the games they played the last season or two, and you go, God, this is Florida State, man. They've fallen a hard way. And I get the feeling that this is going to be one of those seasons where they've got some sneakiness going around, where they've had this plan that maybe might not make sense, or it's not complete or anything, but I think they have the building blocks there. They have some pretty good playmakers there. Just think that they need a season where luck falls on their side. And I mean, I look at the last couple of seasons and I think they can't go worse, can they? Now, do I think they're gonna run the gauntlet and emerge the champion? No, I mean, of course not. I have a feeling that they're gonna improve by a non-insignificant portion. I think we're gonna look at Florida State and go, okay, yeah, I mean, I could see it. Yeah, I could see it. So, I mean, I guess I'm buying on Florida State, which may sound
Wow, I'm
weird.
shocked. I'm shocked. Buying in on Florida State. Look, I mean, I guess it could happen. Stranger things have happened. No one thought Oklahoma was going to do anything in 2000, and look what happened there. So I can see it, but at the same time, it's the same team with the same problems, with the same players and the same coach. Miracles
easily be wrong.
Miracles can happen, but I don't know if this is the one I'd put my money on. But hey, you do you, we'll do us, and we'll all hopefully we'll all come up with a little luck of the Irish. Speaking of the Irish, Notre Dame is our next buy-sell. I am going to go first on this one. I happen to actually be Irish. Hello, what's going on? Top of the morning to you. So let's talk a little bit about the Fighting Irish here. I'm thinking that it might be time. It's been a little while. When was the last time we saw Notre Dame really in the playoff? Well, I don't think we've ever really seen them in necessarily the playoff picture, but they've had some close calls when they've had a couple of national title appearances within the past decade, especially early on in the decade. And I think it's time for Notre Dame to come back. I want to say it was, I think they played Auburn in 2014. Was it maybe? I don't know. 2013, somewhere in there. Somewhere in that range. I didn't look up the facts on it. Going off the brain muscle memory here. But sometime in the early 2010s, I do believe Notre Dame and Auburn played for a national championship. And I believe Auburn won that national championship. So I think it is, in fact, time for the Fighting Irish to be back in the playoff picture. Seriously. We've always talked about it. We've always talked about it when we come up to the CFP rankings, and how do they work in the independents in there? Is it a problem to be an independent in the CFP era? And things like that. And I think this year of any, with COVID and all the random and weird stuff that's going on, you don't have Ohio State to contend with. You don't have Michigan to contend with. You don't have Oregon and some of those other, high teams from a Power 5 conference that are always in that discussion. So I think this year might be the time for Notre Dame to shine. And therefore, I am a total buy for Notre Dame this year. I think they're going to be more in the spotlight, and I think there's going to be more discussion on them, and I think they really have a good shot at being the third or fourth seed in the playoffs this year. And I think that those chances die very quickly after it when we get back to some normalcy. But that's just because of, in my opinion, the way the CFP is set up, it's detrimental for you to be an independent team, even one as profoundly known and established as Notre Dame. I think that Notre Dame, by the end of the year 2030, will be a full-time member of a conference somewhere. That's my prediction. Do with it what you will. Cameron, are you buying or selling Notre Dame?
See, I was very on the fence with this one because I took a look, and again, I think playing in the ACC this year with a full in-conference schedule gives them their best shot at a college football playoff. Simply, because of having a conference championship game. And I get what you're saying about possibly a third, fourth seed. Definitely not the best team in the country, but they could sneak in there since they are a good football team. But I just don't think that. I think this year is a great opportunity for them. Whether that they can take that opportunity with some issues in the secondary and coming up against a much stronger ACC this year because of COVID. There are stronger. The ACC is stronger because of people moving around or whatever. It's a stronger ACC than if they'd have just moved into it like just last year. So I think they have some secondary, some issues in the secondary, if I could speak English.
Well, you invented it.
Yeah, it's your language.
Well, we're talking about the Irish. Maybe I'll speak Gaelic. I'll do that. That'll make a lot of sense.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, but yeah,
Do you know any Gaelic, Cameron?
Come on, Tartu. There we go.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah, but besides that, I think it's a bit of a toss-up, but I think with going into a conference that is now much stronger and with some of the issues they have, I think it will be close, but I am still selling on Notre Dame.
Selling on Notre Dame. Mikey, where are your head at? We got just a little bit of time, so let's try and, just go ahead and pull it out and give us your thoughts on it, but we got to get into the shots, chases, Pac-12, so we got a whole show left to do.
Well, the way I look at it is, are they going to be better or worse than they were last year? And they're in the conference with Clemson. Let's be real. I mean, if you look at who they're going to pick for the playoff, it's going to be the ACC champion, the SEC champion, Big 12 champion, and the fourth one's got to be a runner-up. Maybe
the fourth one's going to be
G5,
the team that lost in the SEC championship. Exactly. Honest to God, we don't even need to have a show this year about CFP production.
Well, we can call it here, guys. I think
exactly.
we just solved it right there.
It's going to be the SEC champ at number 1, Clemson at number 2, Oklahoma or Texas at number 3, maybe Oklahoma State. They're pretty good. I don't know. We'll see. And then it's going to be like Georgia or Florida. That's what it's going to be. It's either going to be like Alabama, Georgia, Florida, LSU, one of those two teams, and then Oklahoma or Texas, and Clemson or Notre Dame. Those are the choices. That's it. We can whittle it down to 8 teams right now. Simple as that. And we're going to have a 50-50 shot at guessing all 4 correct. But we'll get into that later mid-season. Sorry, we just ruined the whole season for everybody. Welcome to From the Stands, where we just fucked the whole season. Yeah. So, Mikey, you're saying they're going to be a worse team this year than last year?
I mean, I don't think they're actually going to be a worse team, but I do think they're going to have a worse time because the ACC, they're not as bad as they were in last year or the year before. They're going to be with Clemson, and I just don't think they're going to have as good I can't say record because there's fewer games now, but they're not really going to have that sort of perception that they're one of the outsider, the top dog of the outside. There's going to be like, oh, they lost to Clemson by 20. Oh, well, that's pretty much what's going to be like, I think. So I'm selling on them.
All right, so you're selling. Real quick, we're going to talk a little bit about the Big Ten. We're going to go ahead. We're just going to reveal where we're at here. We're going to go... Did I do that right? I didn't do that right. I don't think I did that right. Nope, I definitely messed something up somewhere. There we go. All right, so will the Big Ten be playing by October? I'm going to say yes, they will. Or no, actually, I think it was, will they be playing by the end of October? So they have until Halloween to begin their season. Will the Big Ten do it? I think they will, and the reason being is that since we've had the CFP committee coming out and saying we are going to crown a national championship this year with the playoff system, so long as everything stays according to plan, regardless of whether the Pac-12 Midwest, all those the 4 conferences that you see at the bottom of the screen that are grayed out. Those are the quitters. Those are the losers, or the winners, depending on how into the COVID thing you are. If it's truly a deadly disease and it's gonna murder us all, then maybe they're the lucky ones. And the colored ones are we got I don't know. We'll have to see how it all plays out. That being said, the playoff is gonna happen. The committee's gonna meet. And they're going to choose the 4 teams that are going to play in the playoffs. And we're going to have a national championship. I don't think Ohio State, I don't think Michigan, I don't think Michigan State, Nebraska, I don't think any of those teams are going to stand for that. And I think that right now there are probably phone calls being made, people being cursed out, and money being thrown around in anybody's pocket who's willing to accept it to have a Big Ten season happen very quickly so that they can be a part of that thought process. They want to be involved in that national championship spotlight. I don't think you have a team as recently dominating as Ohio State, with almost as many playoff appearances as OU and Alabama. I don't think that they're going to allow themselves to be kept out. And then you have states like Nebraska, where it's not necessarily on just the team wanting to play and the president wanting to play in the school itself, but the Nebraska fans really freaking want football. They want it. Their state is enamored with it, a lot like Oklahoma, a lot like Texas, Louisiana. It's just one of those big football states, right? Because there's nothing else to do but football and cornfields. So you gotta have it.
Those states where there's nothing, right?
Exactly.
In the middle where it's just a load of empty land.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah, you don't see trees, you just see the shadows of big buildings in Lincoln. Like, that's it. Lincoln, for those, because I know we're going to have an influx of British fans now because of Cameron.
I'm very popular.
For those that don't know, Lincoln is a town in Nebraska. It's a city, and that's why you would see the
Lincoln is also a city over here.
Yeah.
There's nothing much surrounding that either.
Yeah, so, I mean, you look to the left, you see Lincoln, you look to the right, you see Omaha, and those are your trees in Nebraska. That's how it works. So, Cameron, you said earlier that you were a sell on this. Mikey, you were also a sell on this. Mikey, why are you a sell in far less words than I used for why I'm a buy?
Oh, I mean, I think about it, and yeah, the coaches, the players, the fans, the parents, they're all clamoring to get there. But at the end of the day, it's the university and the conference that gets to say. And the university officials, they're mostly concerned with academics because it's a university. And it's their mind is, well, I mean, the current plan is to not have football, so why change things up and make things more difficult? And then we're going to have a bunch of people come in for games, and it's just not going to be a good time. Conference doesn't want to seem like that they change their mind all the time. They've already made a decision, so it's going to be really difficult to convince them otherwise. Maybe it's going to be some of this, maybe it's going to be some anger, but I think you're going to have a real tough time. Yeah. You're going to have a real tough time convincing them to change their mind and publicly say, yeah, we were wrong, we're sorry.
Well, I don't think they have to say they're wrong. They just have to say...
That's the implicit message, though.
I don't know. Louisiana just today went phase 3, and the governor never said I was wrong. He just said we've reached a point where we feel comfortable. That's all the Big Ten has to say. We've reached a point with COVID that we feel comfortable playing a football season. We're going to start it on October the 20th.
Maybe. I think it's because there's going to be a lot of infighting until a resolution is made. And it's going to be a long time until that resolution is made. That's what I think.
Well, and that brings up what I want to talk about now, which is Cfp Nightmares. Because COVID has thrown everything into, like, just a weird, twisted, alternate reality of football this year. And we're going to have to go through this quickly, even though this was a segment I was really looking forward to. But, we spent too much time talking about quotes about oatmeal cream pies.
People need to know.
From Nick Saban. Nick Saban and his oatmeal cream pies. We got to tell the world. So CFP, the College Football Playoff Committee Nightmares. There are what-ifs that we have to consider that we never thought we would ever have to consider. For example, what happens if we get 8 weeks in there's 2 games left in the season for SEC, the Big 12, and the ACC, and then all of a sudden we have a 2-win Ohio State, and we have the first rankings coming out from this College Football Playoff Committee. Is it fair, right? Is it how does Ohio State fit into that if they're 2-0 with 2 weeks left? So that means realistically they could get to 4-0 by the final count, right? The final attempt for the CFP to invite their top 4 teams. If Ohio State blows out their schedule, right? Let's see it blow, which I don't think they're going to do because I think they actually have to play Michigan and Michigan State very early on. Or they had to whenever they were going to do their in-conference only, if I recall. So if they kept that same schedule, then they would have to play Michigan and Michigan State very early on, and those 2 teams tend to give them fits from time to time. I think they had to play Penn State pretty early on as well. So if something like that happens and Ohio State is obviously already the clear winner of that based on their performance and the teams that they've had to face early on in the season, what happens? What does the CFP committee do there? Because it may be obvious that Ohio State's a real contender, but they've only played 4 games. Can we really judge a team, or can we really judge them on those 4 games? Do they deserve a spot because they're 4-0? What do you think, Mikey?
Well, the way I look at it is, you've got some possibilities. One is they push the playoff back. Not going to happen. They've got contracts and media deals, and they've already got everything set up, so they're not going to do that. There is, they're going to include an Ohio State that hasn't finished their season. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the committee's going to go, look, have to have your season finished, then we'll consider you. Because otherwise, there might be some scheduling mishaps going on. I think's going to happen is they're just going to simply be like, yeah, you're too late. I mean, we can't include you. And I think there's going to be there's going to be more than one national champion. There's going to be the college football playoff, and then some media outlets are going to go, okay, and then also
the AP champion, or I get what you're saying.
Exactly. I think that's the most likely scenario to happen. Playoff committee is going to go, we can't do it. And then the AP is like, they went, however many and they're the champions. All right, cool. And then it gets put in the record books. Yeah. And then UCF fans complain.
And that's how UCF got their 2nd national title. So, I definitely think that. Cam, real quick, any thoughts on this? Because I actually want to bring this segment back. Maybe not next week, but we're going to try and find some place to put it in here and talk about it maybe a little bit closer to that first committee ranking. If we don't get any more information, we'll see kind of what we can do with that. But Cam, just off the top of your head, would a 4-0 Ohio State deserve to be in even the discussion of the playoffs by the committee? If and we're assuming a couple of facts in that we're assuming they beat Michigan, we're assuming they beat Michigan State or Penn State, one of the 2. So we're assuming that they played 2 of their largest or biggest opponents of the season already in that 4-0.
If they go 4-0 and beat the 2 Michigan teams, I think the committee they give them just the slightest glance. They lose 1 game, they're not getting anything. But I think the most likely outcome is that there's a college football. There's a 1, 2, 3, and 4 seed without a Big Ten team, and there's just a load of pissed off Buckeyes. That's what I see.
I can see that as well. Again, I want to bring this around, and we'll talk about this maybe a little bit closer towards the middle of the season when we get towards the actual rankings coming out and whatnot. That being said, very quickly here, we have to get to our Pac-12 Seconds, sponsored by the Big Ten. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what the Pac-12 Seconds are, if you've missed us on the first season, that's all right. So we don't really know a whole lot about the Pac-12. None of us are really fans of the Pac-12, so we always devote 12 seconds to the Pac-12 just to make sure it's all fair and that every single episode the Pac-12 gets some sort of love from us. So we're going to tell you about what we think about the upcoming season for the Pac-12s here in our segment of the Pac-12 Seconds, brought to you by the Big Ten Conference. All right, well, we hope you enjoyed that segment, guys. We welcome you back here to the rest of the broadcast. Pac-12 is going to be certainly interesting this year. It's always kind of a snooze. So we'll see if they can liven anything up this year for the 2020-2021 season. Guys, let's get to the end of the show, the meat of the show. The favorite part of everybody out there watching it is the shots and chasers. This is your roadmap to college game day. So let's talk a little bit about the matchups that we have, the super exciting matchups that, of course, you know, every season has to start with, right? It's always got to start with the most exciting matchups, the Texases versus the, you know, UNTs, right? That in-state, right? Oklahoma, Tulsa, because, you know, that's, who knows who's going to win that one, right? So you always have those super interesting matchups. We actually do kind of have some decent matchups this year based on the fact that some conferences are playing conference only, so you do get some of those big marquee matches. Not too many week one, but I think next week we'll see quite a few more big marquee matches. But let's talk about the 12 o'clock shot and chaser, which is going to be Syracuse versus North Carolina is going to be our shot. Mikey, tell us a little bit about, actually, Cam. Cam, you're a proper British gentleman. You know, why don't you tell us a little bit about Syracuse and North Carolina? I say, just, you know, I feel like Cam fits with Syracuse a little bit. That might be his team. We should give him Syracuse. We should let him re-roll and just name all of them Syracuse so he picks it.
He does get a pretty good mascot.
Yeah.
Syracuse after that intro.
Huh? Do you know what the Syracuse mascot is?
Monocle.
It's an orange.
It's not an orange. It's orange.
It's the Syracuse orange.
So it's
go fighting oranges.
It's an amorphous blob with the color orange.
Yeah.
I mean, the mascot itself's, I guess, an orange, but the actual mascot's just the color orange.
Yeah.
The mascot itself is great because it's got like a big smiley face and it just acts really silly. So.
Oh, Cam, have you done any? If you want to pass it to Mikey, you can. I just wanted to get the Syracuse joke in there, honestly.
No, I did research for everything for this show because I am committed even from several thousand miles away. This one's actually on at a decent time considering it's midday on a Saturday, which means it's 5 o'clock in the evening for myself, which is a lovely time to sit down with a beer. Yeah, this one, it's NC. It's North Carolina comfortably. The Orange, which I did figure out their nickname while researching, didn't realize it was so embedded in the identity.
Oh, it's not. It's just funny to me the color orange, you know, his logo.
Well, it used to be Orange Men, I'm pretty sure. It was the Orange Men, and then they just abbreviated it to Orange.
Well, welcome to From the Stands, where we discuss the color orange for a full 5 minutes.
Color of the day is orange.
No, in all seriousness, they are coming off a pretty disappointing season from last year, and I think paired with the Tar Heels, there's a lot of excitement, a lot of hype around their offense. I think those two facts paired together are going to give North Carolina the advantage here. I think they're going to win comfortably.
All right, Mikey, give us the other side. Ragin' Cajuns versus Iowa State for the Chaser. For those that are new, the shot and the Chaser, because I should have explained this before. I'm sorry. I apologize. I messed up my order of things. So the shot is your primary game. All right, this is probably going to be the most exciting game in this time slot. Your Chaser is what you tune it to whenever the Dr. Pepper commercials start playing, all right? So unless you're from Oklahoma, because we all know us Oklahomans, we love our Dr. Pepper, all right? We drink it. We love it. And if a restaurant doesn't have it, we just don't fucking go to that restaurant because it's not worth it. So, that being said, that's what the shot and chaser is. I apologize for not mentioning that to all our new fans out there. We appreciate you stopping by. And now that you're all caught up, Mikey, tell us about the ULL Ragin' Cajuns taking on the Big 12 should-have-been champions, Iowa State.
Well, those should-have-been champions are going to say they should be the champions this coming season. So this will be the first insight into whether Purdy and the offense is still legit, whether the defense has what it takes. I mean, they should beat the Raging Cajuns pretty handily. They should. Iowa State, I mean, they've had so many, they should have done this. They should have done that over the last few years. this is unprecedented success for them in the Matt Campbell era. But I mean, they should win this one pretty handily, but it'll just give us a good idea of who this Iowa State is, what they're going to be up to, and that's pretty interesting, I think.
Yeah, I don't live that far from Lafayette, Louisiana. Of course, I may be an OU fan, but unfortunately, I am stuck down here in the Byu state of Louisiana. And I would love to see, like, honestly, I live right in the middle of all this, right? So, like, in between ULL and ULM. And so, we get a lot of talk about, and I live like 20 minutes from Tech, so I'm literally in the middle of like all eight Louisiana schools. It's ridiculous. Grambling's right down the road too. So you got Raging Cajun, like that's the one you really don't hear a lot about here for some reason. And I would love to see ULL like make a scene on even just the state level. I don't think ULL ever is going to probably ever be on that national stage of relevancy, just based on ULL's the Louisiana network of colleges isn't really focused on sports or anything like that. They're very academically focused, very good colleges to actually get an education from. Definitely not the college to go to if you want a national championship. That being said, that all goes down to Baton Rouge there at LSU. So Raging Cajuns, I would love to see them. I love the name Raging Cajuns. I love their logo. I just love everything about ULL. And honestly, like, I'll watch a ULL game from time to time, just because. I'll watch a ULL game before I watch an LSU game by choice. It's true. So I'd love to see the Raging Cajuns win on this one. Real quick, let's get our pick'ems for this one. Cam, Syracuse, or North Carolina?
North Carolina.
Mikey?
North Carolina.
I'm also going to go with North Carolina. I think we're all going to be in agreement on this one as well. Iowa State. Yeah?
Yep.
All right. Moving on down to the 3:30 time slot, which I think one of these games actually starts at 4 o'clock, but that's okay. It's just a time slot. It's just what we call it. 3:30 time slot. Georgia Tech versus FSU. Mikey, what do you got for that one?
Well, as we all know, Georgia Tech has killed any and all interest in their program when they got rid of their option. But this does represent a pretty exciting opportunity for them. I mean, last season was a disaster, but it was expected to be a disaster. This one, they've actually got a little bit of hope, I think. Unfortunately, they started with Florida State, who, they're not great, but they're pretty decent. They should be, at least. So I think Georgia Tech's still going to have growing pains with their new offense, their new scheme, and all that. But it'll be pretty interesting because we want to see what this new era of Georgia Tech looks like. And what does it look like? We're still not quite sure.
All right. Cam, you had some experience watching Austin Peay. How do you think they're going to match up against Pitt?
Yeah, well, the laughing is accurate. Honestly, I'm not even sure. I couldn't even find in my research whether they're getting their long snappers back. I couldn't find that out. Honest to God, they could be going up against this Pitt team still without a long snapper. Honest to God, if you can't even punt correctly, then I don't think there's any hope in the world. This could be disgusting to see. This could really be rough.
Which begs the question, of course, why do we have a team or a game like Austin Peay versus Pitt that's going to be so obviously one-sided, right? And the reason is the chaser isn't necessarily about your football entertainment in terms of the football. It's more geared towards the entertainment factor of that, right? It's going to be a really fun game to see just how bad Austin Peay is going to get slaughtered by Pitt, right? Not necessarily, though, because it could, in some weird twist of fate, end up that Austin Peay, totally healthy because everyone's already had COVID, the long snapper long snapped it to the rest of the team this week, so they're all out, but they're going to recover, and it's going to be fantastic, while Pitt, on the other hand, they come down with it, lose like their whole starting offensive line and defensive line. I don't know, let's say like the big man's weight room just gets covered in COVID. COVID bomb explodes, right? Not that we wish harm or anything on anyone. We're not advocating in any way, shape, or form that we want or desire for anyone to get sick with COVID. It's a serious thing. Yada yada yada. Let's not get carried away with the cancel culture, all right? Don't cancel me. I'm not worth canceling, I promise. Okay? That being said, it would be amazing to see Austin Peay come out and beat Pitt just because of like some random we're just going to call it COVID chaos, all right? COVID chaos. It's going to be, like, I just want this to be like a 2007, right? Just where teams just randomly just, like, we're the number 2 team. But, nope, not anymore, because you lost to some random no-name hack, right? I want to see it. I want to see a 2007 come out and, you know, a 9-3 Oklahoma make the playoffs, because why not? You know? So I think we're all in agreement on this one. Austin Peay versus Pitt. Barring any COVID chaos, Pitt easily and wins this one, but it should be an entertaining game to watch just to see how Austin Peay comes around with their long snappers and if they can actually catch a long snap. Now, Georgia Tech versus FSU, I think we're going to have a little bit more conflict here. I'm actually going to go with Georgia Tech. Cam, what's your call?
See, I picked FSU.
FSU, Mikey?
I gotta go with FSU.
FSU. See, I'm really not a fan of FSU. I sold them in buy-sell, and I don't know if I could sell them hard and fast and long enough. I don't like FSU this year. I don't think Dan Mullens is bringing anything to the table that's new and exciting. I think it's just going to be the same old FSU, same old Dan Mullens, and I think Georgia Tech is going to come out and surprise them, and it's because of that new offense, that new playbook, those new personnel, that I think Georgia Tech is going to come out and surprise FSU, and that's why Georgia Tech is going to come out with the win. Last one for the evening, guys, our 7:30 time slot. Wake Forest, Clemson at Wake Forest, and Tulane taking on, I don't even know what this team is based on the logo. I do. It was on the tip of my tongue, and now I forget. It's Southern Alabama?
Correct!
Yes! South Alabama? Close enough.
USA.
Close enough. Close enough. Let's talk about Clemson and Wake Forest. Cam.
So it's number 1 ranked Clemson against Wake Forest. It's Trevor Lawrence and his many weapons against Wake Forest. Listen, Wake Forest aren't necessarily a bad team, right? Their QB transferred to Georgia Tech and then bailed out of the season, so maybe they don't have the QB, but they're not Austin Peay levels of bad, but they are coming against they're coming up against Clemson levels of good. So there's really not going to be a competition, barring COVID craziness of the highest form.
So one thing I wanted to talk about, and that we're definitely going to talk about next week in depth, I think, if I have any say on conference call about what we talk about, is the way that the SEC did their scheduling and the way that the ACC did their scheduling. Do you think it's on purpose that Clemson plays Wake Forest week 1? Or do you think that's just the luck of the draw? Like, honest, just off the top of your head, honest opinion. Do you think that Clemson was given Wake Forest or that they drew Wake Forest?
Honest to God, with the way the schedules have come out this year, I think they could have easily flipped the coin. It could have been malicious intent versus luck either way.
Well, I mean, but malicious intent comes down to what team you're on. If you're Wake Forest, it's malicious. If you're for Clemson, it's fantastic. It's just like Alabama drawing like Purdue and whatever. I don't know how they drew an FCS team on an SEC conference only schedule, but they somehow still managed to play two FCS teams. I don't know how that happened.
So that's the thing where you just think someone flipped a coin.
What do you think, Mikey? Honest opinion.
I mean,
just throw it out there. Honest opinion.
I don't think they really engineered it because there's so many people who have to run it by first. I don't really think.
Yeah, that's bullshit. It's engineered, 100% engineered. They gave Clemson Wake Forest week 1. They did it that way on purpose. It's same with the SEC. Oh, we wanted to balance out the strength of schedule. No, you want to make sure one of your damn teams got into the playoff, and you didn't even do that. You're the SEC. You could get 4 teams in the playoff by just not playing. Just don't play. They're going to be like, well, they didn't lose to anybody, so they're the best 4 teams. Let's put Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and LSU in there, and let's see what happens. Let's come out with a national championship. Fuck everybody else. That's all you need to do. That's it. Just don't play, and the SEC wins. It's fine. Just don't play. All right. Mikey, what do you got? Tulane versus South Alabama.
You say that like you've never.
I'm a producer. I'm in the production booth. All right.
You should know. You should know all the FBS, all the FCS. Come on, it's a football show. You gotta know these things.
I know how to push buttons and make things appear on the screen. That's what I do. I put the right logo up on the screen, didn't I? I did my part.
Okay. Give you a pass this time. Next time I want to hear South Alabama's fight song.
Country roads, take me home. Am I right? No, shit, that's Virginia.
Yeah.
No, West Virginia.
Yeah.
This sung by John Denver of Colorado. All right, yeah. What do we got? Tulane. Tulane's a Louisiana school, so I picked Tulane.
Yeah, Tulane was probably one of the more exciting teams to watch, even if they weren't that great. But they were pretty fun. I had a lot of fun watching their games. In South Alabama,
South Alabama.
Yeah, Tulane.
Yeah,
I gotta go Tulane.
You agree, Cam? Tulane?
Yeah, I have to go Tulane. Tulane also the only other team represented by a British person.
That's true.
Because baseball Brit Joey, if any of you have seen any of him on Twitter, he did a similar thing to me. He spun a wheel and got Tulane, so now he toes the line for them. So
That's
legally,
awesome. We should next year, like if you
they play UAB and Tulane play next year.
Do they really?
Assuming they don't change anything because of COVID.
All right,
I
will reach out to his people and see if we can't get a Cameron versus what is his name? What does he play? Joey. Cameron versus Joey that plays baseball. Is that what you said?
He's at the baseball Brit on Twitter. I am at the Big Cam on Twitter, so if you want to try and bump my numbers up above him, that would be really fun.
I got you. Well, I'll reach out. I'll reach out to him. We'll see if we can make something happen. All right, so I think we're all in agreement on Tulane, and I think we're all going to be in agreement on Clemson over Wake Forest. So the only one on this schedule, it's always week one, guys. I know it's boring. It's week one. Everyone's got the cupcakes in. You know what's going to happen. Very rarely do we get an awesome shake-up week one. Week 2 and week 3 usually have a lot more, because we get into some of those cross-conference, but we, of course, don't really get that this year. But we do have conference play starting in some conferences, getting into the meat of things. So the only one we had a disagreement on was Georgia Tech FSU, where I took Georgia Tech. You guys took FSU. We'll see who comes out on top next week. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to our show. We are a little bit, and by a little bit I mean a lot of bit, past schedule here. I think this is going to be like a 1.5 hour show on the dot. So thank you for being here. We appreciate it. We love you. We appreciate any support that you could give us. Make sure you follow us on our social media pages, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all that good stuff. And, of course, if you really like us, like my mom, if you're watching, it'd be really cool if you could, do the Patreon thing. That'd be awesome, Mom, Dad, Papa.
Mikey, point with us.
Point. I don't even know. Does he know where he's at in this?
I can't see you guys' screens. Right
there we go. It's so backwards.
Close enough.
You gotta understand. I'm watching 14 different monitors and so I don't even know what camera I'm using right now. So yeah, that's
pointing to.
I pointed this way and it's the wrong way, but it's the right way if you do it with this hand. I don't know. It's crazy. There's so many mirrors and
please
stuff.
Give us money.
Yeah. So, there you go. Any last words, Mikey, before we head out of the show here?
Everyone stay safe. These are crazy times and fun watching football.
Yeah. Cam?
I would like to express the same sentiment. Anyone who is in an area that is currently burning to the ground, my heart goes out to you. Of course, then there's the COVID thing that's also occurring all over the place. Just stay safe as you possibly can and try to enjoy some football.
Yes, indeed. It's a fantastic time for football to come around. We do have the wildfires going on in the northwest of the country right now. We've got Hurricane Laura just came through Louisiana where I'm at. By the way, just to throw it out there, I was in a safe part of the state. I'm in no way really impacted. I lost internet for a couple minutes. That's it. But there's a severe lack of and a severe need for, of all things, rice and beans in Louisiana. So if you have any extra rice or beans in your cabinet, send them down here. Awesome. Seriously. For whatever reason, down there in Lafayette and Lake Charles and all that, they're really really want some rice and beans. Powdered Gatorade, things like that. But also don't forget our friends and neighbors up there in the Pacific Northwest, dealing with all the wildfires and whatnot. Our heart goes out to you if you've had to evacuate. And please stay safe, please stay strong. Know that your country is here for you, and your neighbors are here for you, and we will take care of you, and you will get through this.
Other countries.
That's true. That's right. Canada. All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you all next week.